QuickTime Player, hitting Control Shift and then the space bar, and I'm now at 1 second.
right,
I'm a
I'm
quick
recording
key
locally now.
master. Quick key master. I am the quick key master.
That spacebar thing is a legit life hack.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Command spacebar.
Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome. It's Monday, and here we are. No, it's Tuesday. But it feels like Monday because we all had a nice long weekend. If I feel like Monday, I'm like so ready to start the week. Yesterday, all weekend, I was like,
You've been on one since we got back from Miami. You're like
I'm dialed in.
People are the sun for Jason. Now he's just like, here we are going to do this and this and this and this and this is going to happen. And
here's the play. Like, here's the play.
Let's go.
Well, I was wondering, are you even coming back from Miami? Or are you just going to stay?
I am. All right, everybody. So yeah, welcome to the show. We'll include this in the show. David Rosenthal is with us, from Acquired FM. We like to have him by once in a while just to have a little trio here to bat around the news. But it was a nice, everybody had a nice weekend, I take it. Yeah, everybody had a restful weekend.
Oh, restful.
Shut it all down.
We needed it.
Yeah. It's been a bit of a friend of mine sent me a meme and it was like, God was like, oh my God, I love you all so much. Now deal with. And then it had like a blank space and he just wrote in it like monkeypox. So it was like it was a card of God like cradling the earth, like shaking salt on or whatever. Like, God's making his, his little cauldron of our lives. And I was like, what do we have to worry about this summer? And I'm like, I'm just worrying about getting on the lake or something. I'm trying to figure out anybody got big summer plans? Anybody planning a hot podcaster summer? Because I feel like this is the year of the hot podcaster summer. And we got 3 podcasters here. What's on your hot podcasting summer plans, David?
Ooh, we had a hot podcasting May and we're going to
You did your live show.
Events.
We did it. So we did arena show in Seattle, which was unbelievable at the new Climate Pledge. So Chase Center in San Francisco is amazing, but I got to say, Climate Pledge is unreal. They spent over $1 billion on this place. It was just like
they are going for it with these arenas. Yeah.
Well, because they're trying to get the Sonics back, which is just criminal. But
I always felt that was crazy that the Seattle Supersonics left.
Oh, it's such a good basketball town. Like,
and there's so many billionaires from like Microsoft and Amazon. Like there's like 50 people there who will billionize that team.
Oh, there's, I mean, people have been saying this for years, so who knows? But like, there's got to be a team coming to Seattle.
I was living in Seattle when they imploded the arena.
It
was
really
the most
heartbreaking.
The one,
the Kingdom or the Key Arena?
The Kingdom.
The Kingdom. Oh yeah.
I'm old. Like it was a long time ago.
I love it. That was the King Griffey Jr. days.
That was back when nobody knew that Gary Payton was a dirtbag, and we all just thought he was so hot.
Yeah, but it was a
more innocent times.
Never Meet Your Heroes. Filed under Never Meet Your Heroes.
You live long enough.
But it was an iconic looking stadium. I remember from like the
incredible.
NBA games. It was iconic.
So they saved the roof. It was from the World's Fair in whenever they built the Space Needle. So they saved the roof. Right. They lifted the roof up, and then they built a completely new arena under it.
So hot podcast summer for you is going to be maybe another stop on the Acquired World Tour.
Well, so we did that, and then we did a really cool event at Emergence Capital's CEO Summit. We interviewed Eric Yuan from Zoom and Peter Gassner from Viva. That was in Carmel. And then we did Capital Camp just last week in Columbia, Missouri, which is beautiful. But man, we're exhausted now. You must be too.
Here's the thing.
Both of you.
I don't know.
Jason doesn't get tired.
Not really. No.
He doesn't get the cold. He doesn't get tired. He comes back. Everybody's like in recovery mode, and Jason's like, "Let's go." Turns it up. Turns on the afterburners.
I used to pronounce it indefatigable, but I'm indefatigable. I think
indefatigable.
Indefatigable is how I've been described.
And you have defatted, which is probably why you have all this extra energy.
I have what?
Indefat.
You got rid of defat.
Defatted.
So I got rid of the fat, and now I'm indefatigable.
And now he's in DAZN.
I like it. Yeah. I heard some rumors about a Twist World Tour happening.
We're planning doing like a 5-city tour, I think, and very similar to what you did, like just for the fans, to meet the fans and hang out, like maybe 5 cities. I don't know, $20 a ticket, something just so you don't burn
That's
the
exactly
ticket.
what
And
we did. It was so good.
yeah, so I think that's like a nice thing to do and just meet fans. But I'm just trying to figure out like what startups would want, and so we have some ideas we're going to just bat around. But I want to make it plug and play so it's easy. So Molly and I could like do literally, I don't know, 3 of them in a week. Do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Boston, New York, Miami, boom, 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 and we could just be like rock stars, travel between each city and get it done in a
You need a
week.
tour bus.
Get it done in a week.
I mean, if we have, what I would do is I would send 2 teams. So I'd have like 2 people go to Boston the day before, have 2 people go to Miami, or go to New York on Monday. We do the Monday. The next day, the Boston people go to Florida. This is what Dire Straits did on their big tours when they were doing like the Brothers in Arm tours. They had 2 stages. So one stage would be setting up in Philly while the other one was playing, in Boston or something, So they had 2 sets of gear and they could just play, 6 or 7 nights kind of situation. Because Molly and I would be on stage for 90 minutes. We're pros at this. But you got big plans for the summer, Molly? Anything coming up for you in the hot podcasting summer?
Here's what happened to my child. Here's what happened to my summer, which is that my child and his stupid work ethic was like, he turned 15 and he was like, I want a car, so I'm getting a job.
Oh,
so now he has a
good for
job.
him.
He starts today. It's his first day of the job, but I'm like, wow, I wanted to go to Greece.
Wow.
And you got a job. So now I just got to figure out how to go to Greece without him, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway, yes, I had a whole.
I mean,
however, I have started my hot summer off perfectly. I want you guys to know because I saw Top Gun this weekend 2 times.
Ooh. You saw it twice?
I saw it on Saturday and I saw it again on Monday.
So the
God,
female lead
that is
in
demented.
Monica.
What? I'm still taking this in.
Amazing.
My wife Jenny grew up with her. She's from Marin.
Who is Jennifer Connelly?
The female star, Monica.
Oh, really?
Bravo. Yeah, Barbara.
Wait a second. You saw 6 hours of Top Gun this weekend? It was 5. It was 2.5 hours.
I bet I did, and I would do it again.
Shit, I want to go tonight. I mean, people are losing. I told you last year it's supposed to be unbelievable, and that people told me it was the best Tom Cruise movie ever when they saw it a year and a half ago.
I know.
Were
so
they
is
right?
It better than the first one?
Is it the best Tom Cruise movie ever?
Man, that's a tough one. Come on. It's such a big
Top
over. Like
3?
you can't just like it's top 3. Yeah. It's incredible.
Wow.
He's so restrained. He's so, like, it's just like also if you are the world's giant nerd, which I am, and Top Gun is your number 1 favorite movie of your whole entire life, then this Top Gun Maverick will just absolutely thrill you because it's like Easter egg after Easter egg after like callback after callback. Like the opening scene, not to give too much away, is a shot for shot remake of the original, but like with today's planes and film quality, like you just immediately are just like USA. Like I came out of there just like
let's go,
so fired up. Apparently,
so is Tom Cruise? Is he like the older like mentor figure, or is he still the heartthrob in this one?
It's all about Tom Cruise. This movie is only about Mav.
Right, no more spoilers. Okay, enough. No more spoilers.
Go see it immediately.
But on Thursday when we do this,
anywhere but IMAX.
We'll talk about the new Obi-Wan. So you got to get your Obi-Wan on if you haven't.
I watched that. It was very
too.
Relaxing. Yeah, I had a
lot
big
of
old
good
birthday party.
Oh right. Did you have a party? Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
30.
It was basically I've just been partying since like last Wednesday, and now I'm like, okay, back to work.
I went to Cabo for the weekend. I was at a party, a friend of mine's birthday party, and it was quite nice. I can't talk about it because I signed an NDA apparently. But
my party was exactly like that.
The highlight of this party was we were playing cards under like a nice veranda type thing. Like I don't know what you call that in Italy when they have like a trellis or something above you. I don't know what they call that. It was like quite nice.
A pergola.
Like a pergola. We're like in a pergola. And on the beach, and there's some boats out there, and this boat all of a sudden, we look up and there's a boat smashing into the rocks, and this boat is just capsized all of a sudden with 6 or 7 people on it, and it's like a big like fishing boat, like small yacht type situation. It's probably got 3 cabins and 2 levels, and it's on the rocks, Molly. So we're like, how did that happen? And the theory was like it was moored, and the anchor broke, and this Cabo situation is a little bit rough, the ocean, and it's getting smashed against the rocks. And I said, oh look, the USS Solana. And there was somebody at the table who had a very large position in Solana, and they were like, oh no. And I kid you not, they tried to pull this boat off the rocks. There's people on like there are people on paddle boards pulling ropes out to other boats. And for the next hour, we watched the USS Solana tip over
It's brutal.
and then finally break apart in the ocean, fully capsized. And they shut the beach down because oil and parts of the boat, because this thing got so smashed into the rocks, glass, everything in the boat is just in the water. It was the first time I've ever seen a boat capsize. And, this is water you would be like, yeah, I could swim across that water. No problem. And
turns out
a boat was demolished into tiny little pieces
That's
of
crazy.
rubble.
Also, I had one conversation with that guy after several glasses of wine, and I went home and bought $300 worth of Solana.
Oh no!
Yeah. For what it's worth, Solana.
I bet very small because I'm not good at this game. I bet very small.
I think it's fine to place some bets, but I mean, maybe let's start there. The markets, David, have been crazy, and crypto, of course. We knew that would be, if we're going to move to value investing, a place where maybe there's been a larger focus on raising money and building cap tables. They're not exactly cap tables, but the focus has been on selling the vision and not building the reality. What's your take on it now? Because you had started dipping your toe, I believe, into some crypto,
Indeed.
and
Solana
thinking about
in
it.
Particular.
Yeah. So, one, how much are you down on Solana? And then two, how do you look at, and I'm not saying this in a joking way, an industry that's been focused almost exclusively on vision and raising, and maybe 5 or 10% on actually building products?
Well, fortunately, I'm still up on Solana,
Nice.
as I'm sure is your friend. He's doing just fine. But I mean, I think it's trite to say, right? But this is what has happened many times before in crypto. This is waves in all startups, and I think the tide will go out, and we'll see who's got swimsuits on, in the old Howard Marks quote, and we'll see who doesn't. And I think there are plenty of projects in crypto that have swimsuits on, Solana being one of them, in my opinion. Not investment advice, but and plenty. Have you guys had Adam from Brain Trust on Twist?
I don't think so, no.
Oh, you should. He's great. He was the founder of Doctor on Demand, and he founded a company called Web3 project called Brain Trust. They're doing dozens of millions in revenue, real customers, enterprise, Fortune 500. It's like the crude analogy is like Fiverr or Upwork, but as a token economy, so that
I do remember this.
Incentivized to stay on the network, and they're doing great. Audius is another one, building real businesses. So
we had Audius on, yeah. Audius is an interesting one. They're going to kind of be like Spotify plus the clearinghouse for all the rights in music, if that works. And the three of us made a track together, and we played 3 different roles in that. We could split up the equity in it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So no doubt there's tons of craziness out there that'll get washed away.
It sounds like, though, you are feeling like there are products. Like that's been our big complaint, on this show. I think that's what Jason has said many times. And we've sort of said, like, look, the primary use case for this so far has been like store of value and gambling.
Token go up. Yeah.
Token go up. Exactly.
Token go up. TGU.
And
business model.
There was like a little back and forth this weekend. Jason was tweeting about this question of like, where are the products, right? That people are getting value out of, consumers are getting value out of. It's been 10 years. And somebody I thought made a somewhat fair point that at this point, if you give another 10 years, because like internet companies weren't necessarily providing value for the customer immediately, that it always takes 10 years for any new technology to find a market. Do you think that's fair? Yeah, Jason's like, no, I'm just going to lob this bomb out here and see what happens. Like, where are we in the cycle of any new technology, with the caveat that like no one was swapping derivatives and financializing the shit out of the early internet to make it, to turn it into like $1 trillion store of value.
My guess is we're probably somewhere in between the situation in 1999, 2000 with the dot-com bust, where like there were real companies, there's real technology there. There was a lot of fraud. It got washed out, but like we came out the other side. I think we're somewhere in between that and like just lots of financial fraud and hype. I don't think we're totally in fraud and hype, but there was it was unprecedented over the past few years.
I think a lot of people who are making the analogy weren't there for it. So, like somebody was like, well, this is kind of like 85 to 94 in the internet era. And I was like, the web browser came out like in the early, like 93 and 94, it kind of got commercialized. So actually what you're talking about is really the PC era and the dial-up era where you couldn't show images on AOL or, if you did download an image, it might be 5 minutes. Like literally you could download a picture, but you had to go get a cup of coffee. So I was kind of like, I don't know if your time periods are correct here. I think there's a lost decade for crypto. I think all the interesting stuff that happened in the first 3 or 4 years, 2009, 10, 11, 12, Bitcoin starts emerging and other projects. I think then it got so derailed by the just massive influx of money. People really did suspend disbelief, put too much money into it. And since money is part of the rails of this, it's kind of like, it's kind of like the electricity of this, right? Like, so you couldn't build the internet without electricity and CPUs. Like you can't build this without the internet, without, you can abstract the servers that you would have to normally buy, but you kind of replace them with cash and money on the rails. So I think we've lost, a number of years to people just getting obsessed with the money racing process as opposed to the building. So I do think this could be like a really great thing, this recession for crypto, because are the next coin offerings gonna, pull $100 million out? I know Kevin Rose did $100 million in NFT sales, but he's Kevin Rose, so he's kind of a legend. He's got a big following. But I just wonder if, if we have less money flowing in, then people can focus less on, their net worth and, the acceleration of the stuff and more on the use case. And they have to deliver in order to get the reward, as opposed to now they have to pitch in order to get the reward. And I followed it up, Molly, with a tweet the other day, I think yesterday or the day before. Listen, there's a group of founders who got better at telling the story than making the reality. And I think that we need to get into reality building mode more than anything. It's great. We all teach people how to pitch too. We want people to tell the story well. Molly teaches pitching. At our accelerator, we teach people to pitch. We give them notes on their decks. Hey, how to make this story more believable. But at a certain point, seeing is believing, and I'd like to see the products. And so that's what I'm literally training my team to do, is just a little more actually building of stuff. And that's been, I think, the dialogue. We had, Molly, a bunch of venture capitalists, myself included, talking about VC winter. So maybe we could start there and queue up the VC reaction to the recession, to the downturn, and then maybe David's thoughts on if he's aligned with this vision.
Yeah, there has
what
been
the next year is going to be about.
There's been a lot of, if you're watching the video, a lot of just putting the hand up, being like, you know what, just hold up, calm down. According to CB Insights, funding for global startups is about $58 billion in commitments midway through Q2, which is on pace to drop by 20% quarter over quarter. All of the early stage investors, really investors at every stage, I think, are making the same warning about a VC winter. Sequoia, Kraft, Benchmark, Lightspeed, YC, Jason sent a note to all of our founders. The Wall Street Journal noting that in past downturns, the Federal Reserve cut rates and pumped money into markets to support the economy, providing liquidity and cheap capital, which, as we all know, was great for all the crypto projects we just discussed, and also the funding environment generally. But this time, of course, the central bank is raising rates and taking money out of the system, making money more expensive. And of course, then, as we have discussed almost ad nauseum at this point, and we're so early in this downturn, runway is everything. Fred Wilson of Union Square Ventures and an early Twitter investor said in a blog post, quote, "I would be planning to ride this thing out for at least 18 months or more." Sequoia said it's not going to be a V-shaped recovery. It's going to be a market downturn that impacts consumer behavior, labor markets, supply chains. And Bill Gurley tweeted, "The cost of capital has changed materially. And if you think things are like they were, then you are headed off a cliff," like Thelma and Louise. I really love his old guy references.
Well, I
Thelma and
guess
Louise,
you're
just
headed off.
grab hands, everybody.
Like Thelma and Louise.
Right?
That's my Bill Gurley impersonation at the table when we play cards.
Your episode, the All In Summit with him and Brad was just great.
That was
Because
When
that.
you
Brad
did
is
you
like,
tee it
boing,
up?
boing, 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 boing.
Yeah.
And
Did you
Bill's
tee it
like,
up with Bill? You've predicted 5 of the last 3 recessions.
That was somebody else's joke about another person. So that was like all good comedy. That was I workshopped that one off for somebody else's.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Oh,
I mean, so what are your thoughts? I mean, I know David, like you haven't lived through a ton of cycles here, but what is your plan as you deploy your micro fund and go into your next fund, and then have to mentor these companies that are at the earliest stages? What are the discussions you're having with your founders?
totally. Well, it's funny. I graduated from college in 2007, so right at the peak, and then like right into the crash. And I was working on Wall Street, so that was fun times. But I don't know. My lesson from that is like it was fine. Like yeah, it was rough for a couple of years, but like it was fine. It'll be fine again. Everything will be fine in the long run. But I was thinking the whole time when you were describing everything, and I've been reflecting on this too. Um, so the book, The Snowball, that Alice Schroeder wrote about Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, it's so good. It's a classic. It was the main source, like the backbone of our Berkshire Hathaway series. So she opens it up. I think it came out, I want to say it was published like 2010, maybe 2009, 2010. So kind of middle of the financial crisis. She opens the book with this scene at the Allen and Company conference. It was either 99 or 2000. I think it was 2000. And like right before the crash, like the equivalent of November last year. And Warren gives this speech, and like he hadn't said anything about .com, tech bubble, anything. And he kind of reluctantly gives this speech at the conference. And his point is he says he's like, interest rates are everything. Interest rates are the law of gravity in the economy. And like whatever you think you're, doing, like you should always just look back at interest rates, and like they go up, gravity goes up. They go down, gravity goes down, and like that's what's going on here. And they're already like the Fed is not gonna bring them back down. Gravity's only gonna go up right now. So like yes, it's I think everybody's right. It's gonna be hard for a while. But in the long run, the way you make money is you build things of value.
Right.
Do you think
and that doesn't change? Yeah.
Overstating
And that doesn't
it?
change at all.
Yeah, that doesn't change. So do you think like this level of sort of warning is CYA by the investor class? Or, I mean, it seems like it's a fair warning for people, like prepare for 18 months, like get prepped. But it sounds like do you think it's not that severe, or do you more think like, look, this, like all things, is survivable by smart, capable, prepared people?
I think one of our at our talk at Capital Camp, we did our 12 favorite lessons from 200 stories, 7 years of acquired. And one of the lessons is never fight against a will to survive. Like you can survive anything. It's just about your will. No matter how bad things get, like the best companies, Nvidia, Facebook, people forget, like people thought they were dead at the IPO. They missed mobile. Like you can survive anything. And so it's just about the mindset. So I think it's good of VCs to be like push. The more you can, as a founder and a company, have a mindset of like, I'm here to survive. We talked to Eric Yuan, like we played the clip in the talk. We asked him about, what his goals were building a company. And his answer was, I was always trying to survive. He said it like 17 times. Like
Wow.
if that's your mindset as a founder, no matter what the market, you're going to be set up for success. So I think it's good for founders now to start having that mindset. I think also there's a little bit with VCs, you always got to look at their incentives. So all these people that are telling companies this, well, of course, they want to pay better prices for companies. So like there's a little bit of an incentive for them to be doing this.
You could see that like cynically that, hey, maybe people want to pay a lower price, or since there are not going to be major exits on the back end, they know they have no choice but to pay lower prices in order to make their funds viable. So it could also be pragmatism. A lot of VCs were like, you know what? If it's going to cost 15 million or 20 million for a stage fund coming out of an accelerator, I don't like this price, but I'll pay it because it's triple what we were paying 10 years ago or 7 years ago. But the exits are triple as well, or they're 5x as well, the big ones. So, maybe this is the new normal. And as Warren Buffett said, and you recapped quite eloquently, like gravity's gravity. Like if you can't raise large amounts of money, and things are going to stay low for a little while, and it might loosen up in the future. But I do think VCs, in my experience, are trying to reduce the number of zeros and trying to get founders motivated who haven't seen this before to take it really seriously. Because my Lord, the absolute, I don't want to use like the word entitlement here, because it's not like founders came into this with this, like, oh, I can just raise money. It's my God-given right. It's in the Constitution. I get a gun and, I get to say whatever I want on a soapbox, and I'm entitled to like $1 million seed round. Like,
Right.
No, I don't think people thought that, but I do think what they were trained to think over time, which might have put some entitlement in folks, or just unrealistic expectations might be a better way to describe it, is that founders started to have unrealistic expectations that each round of funding was easier. And the funding was not tied to performance. Really, it was tied to new market entrants. So when Masa came in, or Tiger, or Cotu, or these new funds, these new entrants were going to place bets. They had no choice but to place the bets or get the management fees. So, each round gets easier. Now, each subsequent round gets harder, or the cumulative effort you put into the last 3 rounds is going to be double to close the 4th round. Like, people are not going to expect that kind of gravity. So, you might have been able to dunk and do a 360 dunk, and now you're just not going to be able to get off your heels. Like, you're going to be wearing lead boots. Like, let's see you dunk with lead boots on. Like, and I think that's why VCs are so concerned is, but I had 3 different companies tell me, hey, we laid people off in the last 2 weeks, or we did a reorg. And they didn't go to their boards or consult their investors, which is the founder's right. There's nothing in a board document or that says like if you do layoffs, you have to tell your board or consult your investors. Like a founder can right size the company. I'm trying to think of any situation where I've seen that in a document. So I saw people doing, call it 5-10% up to like 25-35%, or just make the plans and just inform us this is happening. It started or it's happening. To me, incredible, because in some cases they had 6 months and now they have 12, or they had 12 and now they have 24. In one case, I think it was like 24 to like 36, or the person put the infinity sign in front of it. And I'm like, okay, here we go. Yeah. People are actually taking the medicine. And that to me is great, because if, like you said, if you don't give up, then there's a chance for a return. But if you give up, now we've literally marked that to 0 forever. The company's out of business.
Well, then it's game over. Game over only happens
now we've
when
locked
you give
in
up.
a 0. Yeah, chip in a chair.
But there's an important thing too, kind of baked into what you were saying. The mindset of the past few years has been, how hard is it going to be to raise the next round? Well, an assumption baked into that is that we raise the next round.
There will be one.
Yes.
Right.
The best companies throughout history, you pretty quickly get to a point where you control your own destiny. You're cash flow positive. You're only raising money if you want to raise money, but you never need to raise money. And almost all of the very best companies, with the exception of like a Tesla, that's like a very different case where it's like manufacturing, physical world stuff, very capital intensive. Even Amazon like didn't raise that much money in the VC markets or in the private. They took out debt as a public company, but that's a different thing. Yeah. Like, the faster you can get to controlling your own destiny, just the better you're going to be, period. Viva Systems is a great example of this. We interviewed Peter. Most people don't know about this company because they only raised $7 million of venture capital and they only burned 3 of it. And they're a $20 billion public company doing high touch enterprise sales to very large Fortune 500 clients. Usually you think you need to burn a lot of cash to do that. It's just a mindset thing. Like, very quickly, they were like, no, we don't need to do that.
Excellent point too, which is like, why are you, if you're a SaaS company, why are you at a Series E at a $2 billion valuation? Like, maybe we should just use fewer letters in the alphabet for the next few years.
It made sense over the past few years because capital was so available and cheap. Like, why not? And especially as a founder, you take secondary, of course, but like, that's not the way to build a great company.
I'm just really happy to see such an honest, candid dialogue very early in this game. We were sounding the alarm bells, for 2 years about how frothy this was, and I always would tell people the same thing. Like, this feels frothy. It's like a cup. You ever get the cappuccino, and you're like, oh my god, so much great foam, and then you're like, is there a drink here? Because I'm in like a venti cup here, and like I'm trying to find the liquid. You know, you ever get a Starbucks, you start tilting it, and you're like, is there any liquid in this cup, or did you just give me a cup of foam? And I was starting to feel, like I'm getting a cup of foam here. I'm looking for the revenue. I'm looking for the customer, and it's been a very frustrating year or two for me in a lot of meetings or working with our associates here and researchers at launch, and the syndicate saying like, what's the revenue and who are the customers? And they're like, oh, this person is incredibly charismatic. I'm like, okay, well, what's your thesis? They're like, oh, this is, it's a huge market. And I'm like, can we have a discussion about, customers, product, team? And I try to center all my discussions when we make an investment around the customers, the product, and the team. And boy, it's very easy for everything else to just, take center stage. And so for the people who've gotten really good at performance and selling, now it's time to get good at hiring great team members at a reasonable price that are going to kick ass, managing them well, making sure you're getting every drop of efficiency out of every person on your team, which is what I'm working on right now. Which, I might seem a little crazy right now because I've been very laissez-faire, like letting people kind of pursue their stuff. But I just told everybody last week, send me your calendars. And let's look at, I'm doing a calendar review with the investment team today at our investment team meeting, David, because I was like, are we as efficient as we need to be? What are people spending time on? And let's just have an honest dialogue about that. Do we need to meet more companies, or do we need to go deeper on companies? Who's meeting with the most companies? Why are we meeting with companies we should have disqualified before we did the meeting? So we're kind of doing meetings to have our calendars filled, but we should be going and hunting more than sorting. So I think this is the time, and I'm doing it myself also at Inside, where we've been profitable for now like a lot of quarters, and we just raised a little bit on Republic because I like the idea of like, I just like we had done it on Seed Invest previously. I like both those platforms. I like the idea of our customers having it, but I'm super, super focused on profitability, and having every team member be efficient. So go through the list of every team member, do a one-on-one with them, do a one-on-few, and just have that discussion with your teams. Are we putting the right amount of resources on each project? What projects are we working on? Which ones hit the bottom line? And are we going to make it through this? And you really do have to have that discussion about efficiency.
You and Inside are such a good example of it's only game over when you decide it's game over. Like there's so many times over the past few years where you probably could have said game over, right? And here you are building a good business.
It's really become a fantastic business now. We're over $4 million in revenue a year. It's profitable. We've got 30 people over there. And then the velocity in which new products are coming out has just been great. So it's I think I could 10x the revenue from here and have like a literal viable competitor to LinkedIn at some point, or, coexister to Reddit, LinkedIn, or some hybrid there. It's other news. And I don't know if you saw this story, David. I know Molly did, but it's time for, as they say in the, privately, this is not my term, but privately in the media business, there's a term, chicks for clicks. And there was yet another hit piece on a female founder. We had just gotten over talking about this, Molly, and another one dropped this weekend. Glossier, is that Glossier founder Emily Weiss, I guess, handed over the reins of the company that she built. And the New York Times decided, well, what a time to dunk on successful women. Never a bad time, really, if you want to get clicks. Never a bad time to, so in
especially
a blog post,
a capitalist woman. Oh my God.
Yeah. No, I mean,
who built a brand on makeup? Ew, chick stuff.
Yeah. So she built this cosmetics company from 2014 on, and the gender reporter at the New York Times, literally, there's a gender reporter at the New York Times. I listen. I'm not on the alt-right, you know that, but I was shocked that the business story about women was relegated to the gender reporter. Like, I guess she doesn't qualify for the business journalism section or, reporters, but the gender reporter wrote, "The sunsetting of the girl boss is nearly complete." As cynical as the headline as you could write. Here's the New York Times promoting the story. And so, of course, promotion of a story, as we know, sometimes goes a little bit more aggressive and clickbaity. And this is chicks for clicks. Emily Weiss, founder of Glossier and the face on the Mount Rushmore of startup culture. That's not true, but okay. Will no longer be the beauty company's CEO. She's the latest of the so-called girl bosses to step away from their creations, effectively marking the end of the archetype. I mean, what utter bullshit.
This
Molly,
is
your
just
thoughts.
nonsense.
I mean,
I
it's
mean,
so
my thoughts
embarrassing
are
for the New York Times.
my thoughts are effectively unprintable. Like unprintable. I mean,
Yeah.
person builds excellent company that is a runaway hit with its target demographic. I mean, I remember working at Marketplace, and I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago, literally every woman of a certain age, like every woman in her 20s and 30s was like, oh my God, do you like Glossier, Glossier, Glossier? It was the only word on anyone's lips. It is, near as I can tell, by all accounts, very successful. And having reached a point where Emily Weiss thought, maybe someone else should come in and take the reins because being the CEO is a really hard job, and or this company is growing and I have other pursuits because I am only 37 years old and I've already crushed it once, so I'm gonna go crush it somewhere else. That you get girl boss. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I
I've
mean,
told
whatever
I have
happened, it doesn't
told
matter what
Jason.
happened there. Like,
Who
Go ahead, Molly.
cares?
to
You,
extrapolate.
what were you going to say,
Who
Molly? You said you
cares?
told
Well,
me.
I was gonna say I told you once about being at a dinner with a female CEO founder when the story came out about Steph Curry of Away.
Yes.
And this woman saying to me, like, oh no, we're all waiting for this. Like, we are all waiting for this version of the story to come out about us. We're too bitchy, or we're too mean at this, or whatever. When like every one of us has worked for an a-hole.
Yes.
Like, it's fine for some and not for others. Like, these, I don't understand why anybody is unironically using the term girl boss for any reason whatsoever. Like, it's just like,
it's a way to diminish.
nothing.
It's a way to diminish the person. I just want to say it outright. And I know it's. Hey, listen,
She's not
it's
a
my
girl.
friend. It's my friend Sophia's brand. So I understand. Girl boss was like her way of saying, like, I'm capturing this, and I respect Sophia and what she's built, and she's a legit entrepreneur, and she's awesome. But I think when you take her branding, and then you're like, how do we diminish this person who's built an amazing company? And you're like, end of the girl boss archetype. It's like, I don't know that Emily is opting into that archetype. I don't think she modeled her career off of Sophia. So you're kind of just saying, let's ghettoize all of these women, put them over here in this box. They're all part of this silly little archetype of girl bosses, right? They're using the term girl boss, not in the way Sophia used it, which was like taking back the power of that being a derogatory term,
Right.
And I don't know. And the away founder thing just also pissed me off too. But David, what are your thoughts? Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's just ridiculous. It's like the complaint, such as there is one that I could find in any of these pieces, is like they were demanding bosses.
Right.
Okay.
I
like
think that's the
okay.
job.
That's the job.
I think that is the job, and it's hard to build a great company. Like, I just, it's so, the other half of this, there's the like completely terrible and just like puzzling, ridiculous, gender aspect to all this, especially the gender reporter at the New York Times writing this. But there's also just like the traditional media versus tech and capitalism element here that I think is driving a lot of this too. And it's like,
this is a subset of that, David. I think it's a very
Yeah.
important point. Is there's an anti-capitalism vibe on the left, which, by the way, as somebody who's voted Democrat their entire life, who
Me
is
too.
a capitalist, I think actually that's all of us on this program. I'm just like, can you please stop this? Like, we there's, I would say the majority of capitalists, like in tech, overwhelmingly are on the left. And why are you driving us away? Like, love us, we'll make donations. We want to be part of it. Like, you're literally pushing us out of the tent. We're like, I thought this was our tent. And you're like, no, get out of the tent. I'm like, there's another tent across the street. Would you like us in that tent? They're like, no, you can't go in that tent, but you can't be in this one. It's like, so I stand in the middle of the street between the two tents? They're like, yeah, that's where you belong. I'm like, okay, well, we're going to need to put up a tent. And that tent is going to be between these two parties, I think, is where the world is heading with this anti-capitalism. And by the way, I just said on this program, I asked everybody on my team to share their calendar with me so I could talk to them about how they're optimizing their time. If a woman did, and you know what? There are people writing notes right now. Fucking Jake, how great idea. Somebody's in Slack right now watching this live. Can everybody share their calendar with me? I want to just go over your personal productivity and mentor you on time management. And on the weekend, I said, can somebody tell me the best time management systems that they've used and why? Because there are some people on the team who have empty calendars. And I'm wondering, like, maybe they would be good to have like something every day that they did at certain times to optimize their goals and their KPIs. If a woman did that, they'd be like obsessive compulsive Molly Wood, demands to
Driving her
micromanage
team,
people's
wants to
calendars,
micromanage her
writing her
calendar.
team,
100%.
micromanaging,
100%. What is
it's
I will
the double
say,
standard.
where's the anti-capitalist part in the Glossier thing, do we think? And I'm not saying that has not existed. It has, but I didn't see it here.
Yeah, hold on. There was some. Well, David, did you have a specific one?
Yeah.
That you felt.
Tell
was
me-
I
so-
mean,
tell me more,
I think
David.
it's in the overall thread of like what these women have done wrong is be demanding bosses,
Right.
and I think that is like there's an inherent anti-capitalism
And want people to work
in there.
hard and like,
Yeah,
right,
like
got it. Okay. Yeah. I don't know.
this whole thing
It's
reminds
all-
me of I think this was a Sequoia framework. I can't remember where I saw this. This might have been a Don Valentine thing. That like if you think about people in the world, if you're looking for great founders, there's like you put it into people into a 2x2 matrix of satisfied and complacent with the world, or dissatisfied with the world is sort of like you put that on one axis, and then on the other axis you put does something about it or talks about it. And like the craziness about all of this is that like it feels like whatever the New York Times represents here, they're in the dissatisfied and talks about it but doesn't do anything about it camp. And that's like that is the most toxic quadrant to be in. If you're satisfied with the world, whether you do something or don't do something, like you're pretty happy to be around. But like if you want a founder, somebody who's going to improve the world, you want to be dissatisfied and does something about it. And just like going after people who do something about, they see problems in the world or they see opportunities and they do something, like that should be celebrated.
Yeah.
One of the things I hate about journalism today is this like generalization and repeating of allegations without specific names on them. So over the last several years, many of these women have stepped down from their roles for various reasons. M dash, including allegations of racism and toxic leadership. M dash, Ms. Weiss has stayed on. So they're like taking all the female bosses together. And I think the toxic leadership quote and the racism quote is that the Away founder had people of color in their support group, like customer support, and that because they don't put in here what they're referring to or even a link, they kind of are like making this generalization that female bosses are racist and toxic leaders. And it's like, really? Because the way they say it, this is the New York Times. Over the last several years, many of these women have stepped down from their roles for various reasons. Okay. Including allegations of racism, toxic leadership. So you're kind of bucketing this whole group in the reader's mind as there's some like pervasive racism and toxic leadership going on here, which we all know is just not the case. In the case of the Away founder, she was like, everybody has to work over the holidays because we sell luggage. And that's when we sell half our fucking products is the holidays. So like what editor lets this line through? Like if I was editing this, I'd say, who are you talking about? Be specific.
Mhm.
No generalizations. But because this is the gender reporter, and I'm not saying gender is not a viable topic. Sure, I would like to read stories about gender. I think it's cool to have a gender writer. But this is what happens when the gender writer writes the business story and nobody's editing them.
Whoa.
Be
All right.
specific. Be specific. If you're going to make these allegations and
This is
bunch
what
everybody
happens
together.
this is what happens when an editor fails. There is some journalism
That's what I
slander
said.
here. Yes, it is not
I
what
said
happens.
the editor should have edited this. Don't
It
you
is
think?
not what happens when the gender reporter writes the business story. Like, watch it. The gender reporter might be a great business reporter. We don't know. What we're talking about here is like this. What are these generalizations? Where are editors failing? Most importantly, why are editors deciding that this is the story that needs to be written? Like, how are we
selection,
in
sure.
the year of our Lord 2022 having a female CEO of a successful company step away and some editor somewhere being like, ooh, let's make this a girl boss story, and not having any self-awareness, like any awareness that this is going to go poorly, because why wouldn't it? Like nobody ever stops and says, what does this have to do with her gender? If no, kill the story. Like if zero,
yes,
don't write it.
Right.
Like it is just utterly baffling. And it is only, I mean, to your point, David, it is only divisive, right? It divides men CEOs from women CEOs. It divides white women CEOs from women CEOs of color, right? Because then you have Black women on Twitter being like, where's the outrage for Black women CEO or Black women founders who are constantly getting their asses kicked? In fact, girl boss became a pejorative because it was like, it only meant white women. Like, it literally is like, how can we tear down society even more, like bit by bit by bit by bit, and make sure that no one is ever friends again?
Well, I think that is where, this journalism plus identity politics clickbait train leads you. It just leads you to this nightmare scenario where, like you're saying, everything has to be broken into little atoms. And, this woman is a white woman. The person, who had the complaint, is this color, skin, is this, gender. And then all of a sudden it's like, did anybody ever ask, is this a kick-ass business?
Right.
And do we need to dunk on this person? And it's like, well, if we don't dunk on them, we're missing an opportunity for clicks. I think this is why people have lost a little bit of respect we expect this from Business Insider, right? You expect Business Insider to just be cynical and go for clicks. You expect Huffington Post to be cynical and go for clicks. But I think what's disappointing about this is it's the New York Times, and they don't write anything positive about female founders. And it's just like this trend where it's just dunk, dunk, dunk.
And even though I just yelled at you about the gender reporter, it is true that I read this whole story 3 times, and I still don't exactly know if Glossier is doing well as a business right now.
Right.
I don't know. I can't tell from this story. So if she left because everything's going great, like, I don't even know if Emily Weiss left Glossier because everything's going great and she's ready to try something new, or if something girl boss.
They raised funding, they say, and reached unicorn status. Those are incredible things. They laid off dozens of corporate staff members, which means nothing. Right? Like, you're always
we're literally just talking about how
that's a good thing. Yes.
Right, that's a good thing.
And some company called Second Measure says that their sales were down 26%. And then during the pandemic, Glossier grappled with store closures. Well, duh. Like, so did Apple. So did everybody. Mm-hmm. So again, like, it's really like,
right. So
and the retail employees were upset about the pandemic, not Glossier. Right. So, like, where is the actual, this
Glossier
person
had
is a terrible seat.
Hard time getting direct to consumer customers, like other business, all of that. Like, I just don't. Yeah, this is part of the, like, I feel like I never know anything. I just know people's opinions about things or the labels that they want to put on those things, but I'm not sure what I know. Anyway, it seems as though it was roundly rejected on Twitter, I would hope. And yet it doesn't mean that some other female founder won't have some bullshit girl boss story written because no one ever learns.
I mean, I just don't even respond, or I just write a funny response back to the New York Times. Because the New York Times contacted me last night to, like, comment on their profile of Professor Galloway, and I'm like,
really?
I've been workshopping in my reply. Reply number 1, who?
The New York Times is doing a profile about a guy who co-hosts a show with one of its biggest names.
Yeah.
That the New York Times itself promotes.
Can we do a sidebar? I want to know, Jason, what is your workshop process for all in intros for all this? Like, what's roll back the curtain a little bit.
David's like, I have other
roll back the curtain. So, in terms of comedy, people are like, hey, you've got a good sense of humor and a quick wit. I'm Irish and I'm a writer. And I came from Brooklyn, where people just break each other's chops. But in all sincerity, like, that was just kind of gave me probably like a 4 out of 10 on the humor scale, sense of humor. But what happened was, when I lived in LA, I became friends with a gentleman named Kevin Pollak, who I met at a poker game, who's an actor. And we made some jokes, in poker, in this poker game. And then he invited me to his home game. And I was lucky enough to play in his home game for a while when I lived there. And, he would have, Hank Azaria or Jim Brooks, or, pick a comedian, like some of that. I don't want to drop too many names, but, like major comedians. And some of these are very public with talking about it. That's why I mentioned their names. And I helped Kevin set up his podcast, the Kevin Pollak Chat Show, back when I started This Week in Startups. Now he's since stopped doing it, but he had a great run. But just watching Kevin, how quick-witted he was, and these other guys, I'd be sitting at the table thinking in between hands, like, wow, the jokes I tell at my poker game, I'm the funniest guy at my poker game. I'm suddenly the least funny guy at this poker game. And I would just study the way they crafted jokes. He was very generous with me explaining how jokes work at times. So that was where I kind of got like a little, it was like going to the Groundlings or something. Like you just got to sit there and watch them craft jokes and break each other's chops. And so I fit right in, and I learned a lot about it there. So that was my quick education on it. But I would like to get a comedy coach at some point, like somebody to kind of train me on it. And I was just did a roast. So I was just asked to be the roast MC at a birthday party recently. And people said, like, you could do this for a living. And
I feel like you've really upped your game. I mean, since the
have I? Yeah.
Well, like
maybe like a little credit to the workshopping factor. Like you got producer Nick in there. Like
yeah, I do have producers.
You're clearly taking it seriously. You're taking your comedy seriously.
Funny family is what it is.
I would say taking it seriously. Yeah, my producer Nick Calacanis, who is also my nephew, who I poached from Major League Baseball, where he was the #1 editor, to come work here on this show, is naturally funny as well. So we will sit in a Google Doc coming up with goofy things to say about the besties. And we're like, oh my God, that is way too harsh. And, oh my God, that's way. So literally the dialogue is like, ooh, we got to bring that back 20%. So what you hear in those intros, which I'm going to stop, by the way, because I think it's getting tiresome to do it every week. Like I think 6 or 7 weeks in a row is enough. Those are probably 60-70% of the punches are pulled there. So you can imagine like some of these could be.
I would love to see those Google Docs.
Oh, that Google Docs.
I know someday somebody's going to leak the history.
Instant cancel. I would be like, I turned off my edit history on that. I can blame Nick and the other producers. Like that's them. I didn't edit that one.
You're taking that to the grave.
Yeah. So did anybody, I mean, a lot of other founders, I guess, chimed in on this. I like Des Trainers. Or you could try 37-year-old female entrepreneur who started a company now worth over $1 billion, successfully transitions to a new leadership role, having previously recruited an excellent successor. The end.
Right.
And
business
we're done.
Story. Just make it a business story.
Yeah. And then we could interview her and ask her about her great success and what she plans on doing next and her lessons in business. Oh, wait, that would be pro-capitalist. AOC, Elizabeth Warren, and Bernie Sanders don't like that, and our subscribers don't like pro-capitalism.
Oh my God, you guys are hilarious. Well, speaking of things, yeah, we should have her on.
Yeah, come on.
We should totally have her on.
I've been trying to have the Away founder on for a long time.
Yeah,
a long time. But I think Steph Corey I think for her, like, I understand why she hasn't come on or she doesn't talk about it, because do you want your career to be defined by, this label and then have everything be like, so are you a girl boss, or like, what was it like to be called a girl boss? Well, it's just like,
that was one of I thought was cool. You haven't released it yet, but so I'm looking forward to watching it. But the whole Palmer Luckey thing, like, that was, whatever you think about what happened, he's moved on, and like built something else. And like, that's the best thing to do.
I think you are, and that's coming out this week, by the way. I saved it for last. I decided it would be better to just make it the last one, let everybody talk about it for like an extra week and just let it be the last one. But yeah, the woman from The Wing, she got barbecued too at some point.
Mm-hmm. But here we are out here, like Adam Newman's got a show about himself, and we're still like, I unironically love him and would give him money. Yeah, like.
I said this about the Away founder. I was like, anybody who's going to rally their troops to work harder over the holiday to make the company successful and keep their jobs and make it a viable concern. Like, I think that's a great discussion to have. Like, hey, we're going to sacrifice our Christmas so people can get presents under their trees. And then you know what? Everybody's going to take an extra long July 4th Memorial Day. We're going to have our Christmas in the summer at this company because, like Amazon workers who give up their Christmas, there are Amazon workers who work seasonally for the 60 days before Christmas who give up their Christmas to get paid a bunch of money to make sure we all get our kids gifts, in the mail. Like they're the modern day Santa Claus.
Like this happens, like NVIDIA, like Jensen Huang is one of the best CEOs of all time.
Mm-hmm.
And in the late 90s, NVIDIA was effed. And the way he fixed it was, and this was all him. He said, They laid off 70% of the company, 70. And they said the only way
When
we're
they
gonna
did that, Dave,
survive.
they said, "Here's who's staying." If
Yes,
your name's
exactly.
on
It
this
wasn't who's
list,
getting laid off. It's who's
done.
staying.
Here's who's staying list.
And so
Go.
with the
Sorry.
remaining only 30% of the company, he was like, the only way we're going to survive is if we ship the next generation of our products 6 months ahead of the competition. So we just lost 70% of the company. And now we were moving at the same pace as the industry. Now we need to move like 100% faster. And that's
30%
lionized, right?
Yeah.
You know, or like, you know, Facebook. Remember the Zuckerberg used to do the lockdowns at Facebook? Like there'd be some big
Yes.
competitive threat or
Mhm.
Can you
sometime be like,
imagine a woman
lockdown.
founder did a
Nobody leaves the
lockdown?
office.
Somebody
Like,
would call the cops.
right.
They would
Like
call the
nobody,
SWAT
literally
team.
nobody leaves the office until this competitive situation is resolved. Like, you know, imagine.
Yeah.
That, I mean, people don't know about those lockdown situations. He would say, "We're on lockdown for the next 30 days. We're going to beat this competitor. I'm going to be here every day. And if you want to work this company, you need to match my energy."
We're moving cots into the office. Like, full stop.
Yeah.
I mean, people used to. There was an old VC trick. People don't know this, but they used to, when they were deciding if they were going to invest, they would just drive to the office on the weekend, where they would go. They
Or
would
Friday evening, or
Friday evening, whatever, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, just to see how many cars. They would count the cars, you know, in the parking lot. Yeah, this company's crushing it.
We
They
might
care.
be coming back into that era. That's probably a good thing.
I think so.
Well,
So.
speaking of capitalism.
Oh, is
and
this the
how-
Atlassian founder story?
Yeah, let's talk about how
Ooh,
we
I love
feel
this.
about the new, like, we know we've had a secret oligarchy running everything for a really long time. And so now we have a whole new class of populist billionaires
Let's
just
go.
taking shit over.
I'm here for it. Let's go. I love it.
So the
Let's
setup
go,
here-
capitalism. If you hated capitalism in the
Woo.
second segment of the show, wait till you get to the third.
Wait until you get to the part where now we only
I can't
now,
imagine anybody listens to this show and hates capitalism.
for so long we thought that no help was coming, but it turns out we have an equal and opposite billionaire reaction. And here we go. Okay, the news that I'm referring to is that Atlassian founder and CEO Mike Cannon-Brookes successfully took a giant stake in Australia's largest energy company, AGL, which is one of Australia's, if not Australia's, single largest carbon emitter. It's like a big coal burning company. And it was going to spin off its coal-fired power plants and create this like lovely little, you know, extra business. And Mike Cannon-Brookes stepped in, tried to buy the whole thing, which was rejected, then acquired an 11% stake because he was like, no, you can't spin off these coal-fired power plants while Australia is on fire 80% of the year. You need to shut them down. 85% of AGL's energy comes from coal. He made this huge bet, and the effort to create this spin-off coal-fired company was voted down by the board.
He basically...
And a bunch of executives are leaving too, including the CEO.
This is so brilliant. I mean, if companies are going to behave badly, and they're companies, and you want to affect change at them, you can complain on Twitter or you can buy the stock. This is hostile takeovers for social good.
As activism.
Like
I think we should I would avoid right now. It's arguably for social good. It doesn't necessarily have to, right? Like we've certainly seen these takeovers for
this is a
various
tool
reasons.
that could be used.
Takeovers were traditionally for profit.
Right.
It was a business decision. This is not a business decision necessarily.
Yeah.
Certainly doesn't seem like one.
It's a tool that could be used for good or for ill, but it is very, very interesting. Like the board takeover as activism, or we'll buy the company. We were saying this last week in semi-seriousness. Like, should we buy Colt? Like, can we do that?
Yeah, that was my idea.
Would that matter?
$200 million company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or your idea, both your idea too about like the NRA. What did you say? They deploy $250 million a year in
just outspend them.
Yeah, just outspend them. Start a new organization, like the anti-NRA.
Americans for reasonable gun control.
I learned over the weekend, actually, when I was tweeting about this, that there is an organization that already exists in the spirit, because we talked about Mothers Against Drunk Driving, which was this incredibly, effective political organization. There's one called Moms Demand that's very similar, like founded in the same. I mean, we could just overfund the shit out of that. Let's go, let's go and go to every candidate that the NRA has offered money to. Say, I'll give you $100,000 more than them, but you can't take their money.
Yeah. I mean, if he owns
I don't want to
11%,
win anymore. Like, I don't want to convince anybody. I just want to buy more politicians than the other guy. Like, if that's the system we have, and frankly, it seems like this is a billionaire plan, let's go.
My plan is coming complete. See, David, I just hire the journalists from the woke publications, and then I give them the capitalism, and then I'm like, so Molly, we could talk about this, or
we could do something.
Or we could just place some bets, which are also good for us.
It's really true. It started with climate. I was like, I don't have time to change anybody's mind. Now I'm like, I don't, you know what? Like, I'm not interested in your, like, I just want to stack more politicians on my side.
You know, what's great about this also is, like, he's a young guy. He's 42. Atlassian is a tremendous company. And I think this is, dare I say, cool as fuck.
It is.
Like,
I mean, it legitimately is.
I mean, he is so fucking cool, Mike Cannon-Brookes. This guy gets J. Cal's Cool as Fuck Award for 2022 because he could have taken his money. I don't know how much he spent to do this. I'm looking for the number here, but you know, this was not cheap, I'm sure. Whatever he spent on this 11%, okay, maybe he makes some money, but there's other people who are buying boats, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, there's other people buying a new plane.
Get in the game.
And this is like, if you're optimizing for joy in your life, you're in Australia. As Molly, people don't know necessarily, but the wildfires in California, when they see the wildfires in Australia, they're like, oh, fuck.
So much
worse. You know, like our wildfires are like, really? Ooh, dude, put that out.
Mm-hmm.
It was serious. That country was seriously on fire. And it's very simple. Like, and they have the Great Barrier Reef. Australia's a long way away. You go to Australia because it's just the most amazing ecological journey you can make in the world, you know, or it's top 5, you know, along with Africa and South America and a couple other places. What he's doing is so cool. And it ultimately could be profitable, because if they are making their money off of 85% coal, and he says, hey, let's try nuclear, let's try solar, let's do wind, let's do this, let's do that, maybe this becomes profitable.
Yeah.
And so I love the idea of a group of people buying Cult and saying, you know what? We're going to have a terms of service. Here's our terms of service. Our terms of service, because you can do business things that are good for business. Our terms of service is, if you buy this gun, we can't force you to take this course on gun safety or this license because your state doesn't have it. But in your state, we're just not going to sell the guns. And if your state wants these guns, you need to have a test, because we don't want to be party to selling guns in a state, just like Elon doesn't sell Teslas in a state where you have to have dealerships, because what do dealerships add? Nothing. They screw customers. So it's like, if you don't let me sell direct and fix the car, I'm not selling there. So, and then what if Cult or some other gun manufacturer said, you know what? Our minimum age is 25 years old to buy this gun. Okay, yeah, you could sue us, but we're just going to make a minimum age. If you want to buy like a 2-shot rifle to go hunting and you take the test, yeah, we'll sell it to an 18-year-old. But could a gun company put a minimum age to buy their guns, or put minimum training? Like if you want to buy software, there are some companies that won't sell you the software unless you send somebody to training, because they know you're going to fail with the software. That's for software.
Well, this is
nobody
what's so
dies
cool.
from software.
What's cool about capitalism too. This is one of our 12 major lessons at Acquired, which is you get the partners, customers, whatever you ask for. Like, this could be a good business decision, because if you do this, you're going to attract all the people. And I'm sure there are a large number of people who are in the concentric circles of want to own guns or own guns and don't want school shootings to happen anymore. Like, there are a lot of people.
99.1,009. Yeah. The only person who doesn't agree with that is the school shooter.
Like, if you make yourself the Patagonia of gun makers.
Right.
And then on top of that, you're lobbying.
Explain what you mean by that. People may not know, Molly.
Well, so Patagonia is a clothing wear company, obviously, but they were, I think, for a very long time, like a B Corp. They were a social good organization. Yep. They have put into, for one of the things they did recently was basically say, like, you know, they're the favorite vest maker of bankers and hedge fund traders and Silicon Valley guys. And Patagonia said, hey, we're not going to sell our vests to you anymore, hedge funds, so that you can put your logo on it and have it on top of ours, because we think that the things that you're doing in society are net negative. So you can't buy our product for that
It's
use.
hilarious.
So
Right. They were just
it's
like,
deeper
nope.
than that too. They they make clothing, which is the act of doing that is not good for the environment. But they're like, we're
Mhm.
going to stand, recycle our clothing. We're going to take back
Mm,
our clothing. We're going to recycle. Like it's the whole
fantastic.
ethos of everything they
Yeah.
stand for is like people who want awesome new clothes, but who also care about the environment. Like
Mm.
you can totally do this with guns.
They were one of the first retailers to set up, like a resale operation. You could 100% do this with guns, and then you pair that with a public policy arm and a lobbying arm. I mean, I 100% agree with you, and this is actually what I like about the billionaire sort of like board takeover as opposed to philanthropy,
Mhm.
because yes, it's agenda setting, but we live in a world where billionaires get to set agendas, and they always have, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing new about that. So if they're going to set an agenda, use financial incentives, which are frankly even stronger
Yeah.
than philanthropy, which is like diffused and has all this like bureaucracy attached to it. I mean, the way that Little Engine is the activist shareholders that took over the Exxon board, it was ultimately a financial argument. And I think that it's sort of the same thing here with AGL, which is like, these are the companies that are in a position to just flip a fucking switch and blanket this planet with renewable energy. And instead, they're trapped in this kind of like sunk cost fallacy of coal or oil or natural gas.
Coil, yeah.
Coil is
What's
killing
cool
us.
though is like in we've seen examples of this too. It's not just billionaires who can do this. Like billionaires can do this, obviously, but like
Yes.
look at GameStop, right? Like Reddit can do this too.
Yes.
Yes. Great transition. And
Yes.
it is
Great
literally
transition, because
so we have
tomorrow's GameStop
Elon.
earnings.
Yeah, we have Elon doing, in his mind, freedom of speech with Twitter. You have Mike doing coal and renewable energies. Like maybe somebody does guns. You guys have any other ideas as we wrap this? Like,
I mean, I will say, I think
a social good.
Mike is making Elon's social good play look a little bit lame by comparison.
Well,
he's the guy who
I mean,
could've done it.
Elon's
I'm just
also
saying.
building Tesla, so I mean,
Right,
he does
yeah.
have
I'm
has
just
dipped his
saying,
toe into the
He
environmental
could have
world.
been all in on it.
I
Now
I
he's,
think
like, a
this
little
is going to
distracted
spur
by
a
this
lot
other
of
thing.
people into action, because like if you think about Bezos' $10 billion climate pledge that's going to go to a
Pledge.
bunch of
Mhm.
donations, like would
Yep,
that have been
literally.
better to
They
just
called
buy?
it so that Seattle Arena we were talking about. It's Climate Pledge Arena. It's the Amazon
Yeah.
Arena. Amazon paid for it, but they
Right.
called it the Climate Pledge Arena.
But
Yeah,
would that money have been better spent if Amazon was like, we're taking a stake in this, or we're spinning up a renewable energy company, or we're buying a utility?
Probably.
Because utilities
Yes.
are like literally just standing in the way of renewable energy rollout.
Or we're buying 10% of 10
Maybe.
utilities. We're just going to buy 10% of 10 utility companies, and we're on the board. We're going to
Yeah.
put somebody on there, and there'll be somebody there just steering the discussion towards what are our renewable goals here.
And can you make more profit than your tax benefit from your philanthropy, right? Like, how do the incentives start to shake out here?
Well, if you think about that, Molly, if let's say Mike makes a profit on this,
Yeah.
let's say he doubles his money. Now he can do it twice. He can do it 2 more times.
Yeah.
Or, like if he doubles his money, he can do it again and still keep the main. If he could actually sell his stake in this company and then do it 2 more times.
Yeah. Totally.
So,
It's
I love
it's
it.
the old
Evergreen.
Amazon strategy, which is one of the most brilliant of all time, which is look at your income statement, take all of your biggest expense line items and turn those into revenue streams. Like
Yes.
that's the way you win. That's how
Yeah.
you build AWS.
yeah, marketing, turn your marketing expense, turn your technological expense into a thing. So I guess we should check in on now this issue of GameStop. Are we going to that the results come out tomorrow? Do you know?
Yeah, they're doing earnings tomorrow.
We'll do that
which
tomorrow,
I'm
I think.
excited to discuss. We can sort of tease ahead to that maybe. But yes,
Yeah.
I will tell you that I spent 5 minutes actually I spent like 25 minutes, because time goes fast, down the Twitter rabbit hole of what the GME and AMC apes are doing. And I mean, you dig into that and the call to war, and you want to like pound 5 Monster Energy drinks and put your life savings into AMC. Like, it's intense.
Yeah,
It's intense.
they're going for it. I mean, didn't Melvin Capital go under? I mean,
Melvin Capital went under, so they're
Yeah.
just like, we're winning already. The short squeeze is coming. It's like, I would not. I said this to our chat today. Like, don't sleep on the hedge fund holy war that is these retail investors, and it's actually of a piece. It's right. It's all the same thing. Like, we have run out of tools politically, globally, and so now we're using money. And frankly, money is probably the most effective tool.
Money
that exists.
talks. Well, money's
Yeah.
why
It's better than bullets, that's
senators
for
are
sure.
not, like money is the reason why these school shootings keep happening. Let's be completely honest.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
Yes, follow
that's
the
the
money.
rules of the game. You should use just play Gurley talks about this all the time. You got to play the
Yeah.
game on the field. Like the game on
You
the
got
field
to
is
play the
money.
game on the field. Absolutely. I mean, if you look at like the NBA, like you you used to be able to do hard fouls, then you couldn't. Flopping worked, flopping doesn't work. Like
Right.
they changed the rules. You got to adjust, right? And if you're going to be a flopper in 2022, you're not going to get the call, and you could even get a call against you for flopping. AMC, my lord, like talk about a crazy bet to make. These maniacs with what happened with Top Gun and what maybe will happen with Jurassic Park and the market collapsing, all these shorts, like I know it's down 50%, but what if they have like this like blockbuster summer
They might be
and the
right.
stock goes up and movies come back, and it's like paradoxical because people are just like, you know what, streaming is so fucking boring, like sitting at home on my iPad watching this shit. Like I would have much rather watched Obi-Wan Kenobi in a theater. If it was in theaters, I would have paid for a ticket.
Yeah.
I would have rather have watched it with a bunch of Star Wars nerds than watch it alone or, with my family only. I want to take my family out to see Obi-Wan in a movie theater.
It's really true. Like we went to Top Gun and people were cheering. And by people, I mean me.
You were screaming.
All right, you got me hype. I'm
But
gonna
no,
go
everybody
see it
was
in
like,
theaters.
people
I'm
were
going tonight
cheering
now.
and
I think I'm gonna
clapping
go
and
tonight.
like, there is something pretty magical about that. I agree. It's all like all the rules are changing and Revolution doesn't look like you think it looks. And I think in this case, it looks like Mike Cannon Brooks. It looks like these retail investors, like it's all of a piece, and it's a real interesting time to be alive.
Yeah.
It is.
Let's go capitalism. Who am I even, Jason?
Exactly. I got you.
Yes.
Transformation complete.
Capital. I mean, I think one of the things about being a journalist is your powers are muted. Like you have the power to, all of a sudden you find yourself screaming like this should change, and here's all the information, folks, and then nothing changes, and you're like, or it's changing too slowly, and we can place a bet sometimes, and the maybe the change happens quicker, and in the case of this coal burning energy company, like he placed the bet and now the change happens instantly. Like they were going to spin these coal plants out, they were going to run amok, and now it's like, oh nope, we're going to take a different approach. So placing bets can work. I really would like to see these stonk people on the GameStop folks and AMC come up with a noble target. And I think the noble target
Colt
should be
could be
the guy. I was about to say it. Thank you. If you're listening, AMC and GME, stonk army, I am appealing to you to own as much of the gun companies as possible and create change through owning their stock. That would be a noble mission. So go ahead. I think, if you look, you have Ruger, which it makes the pistol I own, the GP100. Ruger is publicly traded. And Smith & Wesson, I believe, SWBI. So maybe start buying up those stocks and then start saying, like, what changes should the gun companies make in terms of the terms of service? We have a terms of service. You can't open your iPhone, like you can't edit the software. We give you all these things you can't do. You have to buy apps through the App Store. You can't jailbreak your phone. Take the same approach with guns.
Yeah.
I'm
going to save you from the trolls right now and just say that the mission that they are on right now is to kill the hedge funds.
Which in their mind is noble. Yes.
Well, yeah. I mean, right.
How about an even more noble mission?
An even more noble mission, because in this
or your next noble mission.
Yeah, next noble mission.
How about this? Let's not kill kids for money. Let's not do that.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Let's not let money. It's literally, the cynicism is so deep. Like it's staggering. It's like, really. NRA gives Mitt Romney, $10-15 million. The guy was a hedge fund guy, right? Yeah. Mitt Romney is Mitt Romney a billionaire?
Capital. He was Bain.
Yeah. Is he a billionaire or just worth a centimillionaire?
Probably.
Just a centimillionaire. Like, can you imagine?
He's one or the other. He has a lot of money.
He's either a centimillionaire or a billionaire. Somebody fact check me. Can you imagine the level of cynicism? You're a centimillionaire or billionaire, and for $14 million over 10 years or whatever he got that money from the NRA, whatever it is, it's like $1.4 million a year. 13 million, 1.3 million a year. Maybe he's been taking it for 20 years. And you, like, it's chump change for you. That's like your seventh house, but you sold your soul to vote
Yeah.
for these maniacs with zero gun control. Like zero is the goal. Really? Zero?
It is funny. Yeah.
Less than cars? Less than cars. Less than cigarettes?
If Wall Street Bets or Elon or somebody, said we're going to go buy Smith and Wesson, or like,
Right.
it would start
change
a
everything.
huge movement. It would change everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's go. Like, let's
go.
do it. It's you know what? It's better than waiting on Congress.
Yeah, right.
That's
And that
not
company
happening.
would do great. Like,
And that
sales
company
would
would
go
do
through
great.
the roof.
Mitt Romney net worth, who knows if this is true? It's on the internet, so it's probably not, but 450 million. So literally like 10% would be 45. It's 3% of his net worth. He could have just paid for that money to be in office himself.
Mhm.
It's like, and now he has to be the number one
list.
contributing taker of the murdering
Yeah.
sociopaths at the NRA. And I am a gun owner, and I believe in reasonable gun ownership.
It's no longer the same thing, right? There used to be gun
No, it's
culture,
totally-
and now
yeah,
there's
no.
like this militarization and this obsessive, and it's all been like sort
There's
of
a
taken over by
big
white
difference
supremacists. It's like
between
a real
owning
actual
a gun and owning an
Yeah.
AR-15 and selling that to people who are deranged. Like, that is not the same thing.
16, yeah, I mean, and
Not
also
at all.
18 years old, like really 18?
no, come on.
It's just like
18.
I maybe
You can't drink,
18
but you
for
can,
one
like-
gun, maybe like a rifle, and if you want to use that gun, like what is it when your kids drive? Like for the first 2 or 3 years, you have to have a driver's
Learner's
license,
permit.
and it's only learner's permit. You
Mhm.
got a learner's permit. You got to have somebody in the car. It's only during the day. Maybe you're not allowed on the highways until you get the second one, right? It was like a 2-phase thing in New York when I grew up. You could be on like local streets, then the highway. Like just reasonable stuff. Like
Reasonable
not
stuff. Like
crazy
a pilot's
stuff.
license.
Not a
Like you have to have
ban.
a certain amount of hours at a gun
Sure.
range
There you
before
go.
you know,
Right.
like
pilot.
Yeah.
And then when you're at the gun range, you have to talk to somebody at the front desk, and maybe they could red flag you if they think you're nuts. I talked to somebody, who's a friend of mine, who's going to make a independent red flag database where anybody is going to be able to report somebody, and then they're going to pay for the background. They're going to check that the person reporting it is a real person, and then they're going to spend the money to let local authorities know. They're going to make their own red flag database. And I was like, this is a brilliant idea.
I mean, that's
Can you
where we
imagine
are.
if it works?
Yeah.
I was like, I'll donate to that.
I think it's even better, though, just to own the gun companies. Like, go right to the source.
Oh,
Right,
absolutely.
what's
Combine,
the
pair
market
it with
cap?
data, pair it with like
Yeah.
proper lobbying and marketing, frankly, which not everybody's always great at, and then just buy them.
Yeah.
Become the
Ruger-
majority shareholders in every public gun company.
By the way,
Amazing.
Ruger's worth 1.2 billion. Like
It's
it's
nothing.
120. It's nothing. It's 120 million. Like we could raise that on this show. Probably. We just say to everybody, like, anybody want to chip in with us and buy Ruger? I mean, Smith and Wesson's got to be worth more. Ruger's a smaller company, I would guess. But yeah, let's see what Smith and Wesson's worth. Here we go. SWBI is worth Smith and Wesson's worth 709 million.
I mean, for God's
What?
sake.
Get out of here.
Yeah, and these things
I
trade
love
like
this.
at a 3 PE. The ratio is 3. It's a 3
Wow.
PE
Wow.
ratio. Ruger's PE is
Mhm.
8.
Economic warfare people. Smith and Wesson is who we're talking about. And the
my
notice missed
gosh.
that.
You could make
Yeah.
so much money doing this too.
You
like,
could
because
make
I bet
so much
I bet
money.
these stocks are
Okay, I
depressed
might-
because everybody's like, oh, all this craziness going on. Nobody. But if you buy them and you're like, no, we're going to embrace.
Well,
gun
and
control,
ironically, the
it's a
stock goes
great-
up every time there's a
Yes.
shooting because we're the worst country on earth. But it goes up to 3 times price to earnings. Like, you can
Yeah.
do better.
Companies are depressed.
Patagonia of gun companies is a thing.
Okay, here we go. Now I got
All right,
some.
let's do it.
How do I
Let's go.
mobilize a group, like a syndicate of sorts, to buy 10% of Smith and Wesson and get a board seat on Smith and
Only
Wesson?
There
Huh.
were
For the
Yeah,
syndicate,
We
You
had,
gotta get a piece
like,
of the action.
10,000-ish
ish people,
high
who
net
put
worth individuals.
who wanted to collectively put
one
$70 million in
Very
buy-
impactful group chat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've got to figure that out. All right, everybody. Thanks,
Yep.
David, for coming
Been
on
a
the
great show.
Follow
Oh, it's a
David on
blast.
Twitter. Go search for Acquired. Listen to Acquired, and yeah, more
Thank you
shows to
both.
come.
Always a
Acquired
pleasure to be
FM
here.
on Twitter.
Thanks for coming on.
And we'll see everybody next time. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
You
Great show,
next time.
everybody. Exciting to have David on.
I know it's so
All
fun.
Yeah. Hey, Noties. Make sure you follow our guy. And thanks for coming on the show. Oh, wow. 211 people still watching. I like doing it live. I like the feedback.
It's so fun doing it live. Yeah. Hey,
You get a little
everybody.
We're
feedback.
still live.
We're still live. Yes.
And I dropped a folder or a Google Drive folder in the private chat for you
Got
to
it. I'll
upload your
upload.
audio.
So great.
All right, everybody.
Molly, happy birthday.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I guess it's the last day of May. I officially have to stop having to be my birthday, but I take
It
the
is
whole
when,
month.
Are you guys ever going to go back to the studio? You going to do live again?
I mean, it's possible. I think I might. The thing we're thinking about is with our interviews, like we've been doing some together, some alone, and we haven't kind of figured out what is more effective or which the audience likes more. Sometimes we like doing it, but I could see it being annoying. Sometimes have 2-on-1. When I listen to a 2-on-1 interview, I'm not a fan of it. Like listening to other people do 2-on-1. What do you do? Do you do 2-on-1s on your show?
We do. We actually find it helpful because it's stressful doing it. So when somebody's like, when one of us is like, all right, we've run our line of questioning, we're thinking of the next one, the other one can just jump in and
Yeah, I think maybe Molly and I probably have a little more experience, so we respectfully, probably
of course
are used to doing it on our own. But anyway, what I'm thinking about is if we did do, since there's the two of us, we could have one of us could go do a live thing somewhere, another one could do a live thing somewhere else, and then you got two people out. Like a lot of these conferences want a podcaster to come, and we'll pay for a podcaster to come to do an interview like you're realizing. And so we could kind of divide and conquer kind of thing if we wanted to.
It is kind of an efficiency question. And even having a 2-on-1 interview, it's like, is the additional input worth the
time
use of resources? Yeah.
It'd be like, we could, like if, it just doesn't make efficiency sense. Is exactly right. Especially when you're 6 days a week.
I hadn't thought about that. You two are different. See, we're not,
I mean, I hear you though.
interviewing is
like,
our sort of second skill.
Right. Like it's a little less work to have a second interview. It definitely is. And Jason and I talked about that, like that you can sometimes have somebody jump in with a question. You're like, yay. But it can also be a little more work in the sense that you're like, wait, I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
And now I'm on the fourth follow-up.
But right. Or Jason's on the fourth follow-up. Exactly.
It works for us because we're not interview. We're primarily storytellers. Like when we interviewing is sort of like that's a third of our episodes. 70% of our episodes are just us. So like we have our like dynamic, but for you, you guys are both pros.
I'm stoked. I want to start going on field trips. Like I want to be like delivering field correspondent pieces where I'm like, I interviewed these people the other day who are like turning waste streams into like a protein, like a flour that you get. It's basically mushroom based, but they get it from wastewater treatment plants. And so I'm like, this is a field trip, right? Like I hear that stuff and I'm like, I need to go to your stinky facility and wear a hard hat and come back with a great in-person interview and a video.
Yeah. Nobody's really doing that for startups. Like that would be fun.
That's my jam.
Wait, say it again.
Sorry. The secret superpower. Going on field trips, like go to a place, do a field, like the Cana, where I went down, tried the thing, and we came back with both an interview, a taped interview, and a video. Yeah, I'm like, I am the field correspondent.
Yeah, that's 100%. Great. Field
Let's
stuff
go.
Is cool. Yeah. All right, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
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 All right, bye, David. Great to see you.
I'll hop out.
Take care.
Okay.
Alex?
Hey, yeah, I'm going to end the stream. Yeah.